Alexa Donne here, and today I'm going to be talking about writer's block, or when you know you need to write and you're just not feeling it. Now, some people object to calling it writer's block. They think that by giving it that name, that it's an excuse that you can use not to write. And to be honest, some of the tips I'm going to be giving today are in service of that idea, that if you do certain things, then writer's block won't happen, essentially, because you won't allow it to happen. You will train yourself to push through even when you don't feel like writing. And that is key if you want to be a serious writer, and especially if you're writing towards publication. You are going to end up writing on deadline and writing when you do not want to. So the first step, which I talked about a bit in my How to Start and Finish a Novel video, is to make writing a habit. Make it a good habit. It's when you write, where you write, the environment, little things that you can do that will trick your brain into thinking, oh, this is the time to write. So start there. You want to have a schedule or have a place where when you are there, your brain clicks into writing mode. For some people, that's going to a cafe or a library or a bookstore. For others, it's a specific place in your home that's quiet and has the right lighting and environment. That could be a desk. But you need to figure out what works for you. You can also train yourself to write in certain situations. So for me, the best place to write in my apartment is technically my desk. I have one, and I literally never use it because I don't know. But the best place for me to write realistically is in front of my television, because that's where I have my laptop, that's where I have my setup. But for the longest time, I couldn't successfully achieve writing sitting in front of the TV because my brain and my body associated sitting on the couch in front of the television with leisure and watching television. But once I turned off the TV enough times and sat there in front of my laptop with Scrivener open and I wrote, eventually I retrained my brain to be able to achieve a lot of work while sitting on the couch with my laptop on the coffee table. Now, another thing that you can do is flat out bribe yourself. Do not be above resorting to bribery. So think about what you like and what you want to do, and then either do that thing, but the cost of that thing is that you have to write afterwards, or reverse that order. You cannot watch the new episode of your favorite television show until you have finished a scene. You can't have your favorite dessert until you write a chapter. You can also simultaneously bribe yourself, though I will say it takes some training to have the thing but also accomplish the writing. In my case, I know that when I write, I get to have a glass of red wine. I love red wine. It's one of my favorite things. But I now don't really drink at all unless I'm writing, because wine is my reward for doing work. And specifically to go with that, I get these amazing dark chocolate almond oatmeal cookies from Trader Joe's. They are my favorite. And I get to have red wine and a couple of chocolate oatmeal cookies while I write. And that is my reward for doing the work that I know I need to do. And the thing is, after a while, you don't have to bribe yourself to do the writing because you've created a habit. But when it's hard, when the days are hard, bribes can work. You can also use social bribes, like you want to spend time with your friends this weekend, or you have a trip coming up, like you're going to Disneyland or you're going on vacation, but you promised yourself that you would do these things only if you made progress on your writing. So ultimately, you have to want to do something, so bribery only goes so far. Now, another trick that I use plays into the writing environment, and that is using music or ambient noise while you write. Music is tricky. Some people definitely cannot write to music that has lyrics or is, really poppy, because you get distracted and you want to listen to the music. Or if you're me, you want to karaoke poorly, sitting on your couch, maybe dance around a little bit. So that is why my personal recommendation is film and television scores. What's great about film and TV scores is that there's tons to choose from, and you can be genre and tonally specific. Like if you know that you need to write a romance scene, you could pull up the soundtrack for a really romantic movie or for a track from your favorite TV show that played during a romance scene that you really like. Or same thing with action. You can queue up a really punchy soundtrack that played behind, a scene where the hero's punching the bad guy. Typically, I tend towards scores that are kind of depressing, to be perfectly honest. But my books aren't always depressing, but the serious and focused mood of certain film scores just really makes me want to write. Though I do have a few that I put on just because they energize me. A weird one that kind of, combines those two. It's both depressing and a little energizing. I really love the score to Atonement. It's a movie and a book about a writer. So within the score, there's actually the sound of someone typing on a typewriter, and I just find that really energizes me. Plus, it's a really depressing movie. So the score's pretty serious, and I like to use that when I'm working on drama. But some people can write to pop music or contemporary music or music that has, a more modern feel and lyrics. In that case, I highly recommend creating a playlist for your book. So it's the songs that make you think about your characters or your plot, or just really get you in the mood. You can create a Spotify list, something on iTunes. I use Amazon Music not only for all the scores and the classical music that I like to listen to, but for all of the random pop songs, though I favor European electronic music. And actually some of that I can write to. I can't really write to like American radio pop, but I can listen to Röyksopp, which is a Norwegian DJ duo, and it's kind of, it's almost an EDM feel, and so maybe it's the rhythm that I find easy to write to, but then there are pop hooks on top of it, but that's one of my go-tos. I also really love Susanne Sundfør, who is also a Scandinavian pop singer. What's really cool, though, about creating a playlist while you're writing is that later you can share that playlist with readers. And a lot of people love to listen to book-specific playlists, whether it's the music that inspired the writer to write or their songs about the characters in the world. So there's kind of a bonus there, a win-win. Another thing you can use is ambient noise. So I live in sunny Southern California, but I am from the dreary, cold and rainy Northeast. And I actually really love cold rain and snow sometimes. Like the first day of snow is really beautiful if you've not experienced that, but then it gets gross. But I miss weather. So I like to put on ambient noise that is the sound of rain and thunderstorms. Sometimes I'll do ocean sounds because I have fond memories of being at the beach in Ocean City, Maryland when I was a kid and like hearing the ocean as I tried to sleep. So I'll use that. They also have sounds that are, if you're Southern, that are really nice. They have train sounds and crickets. Just all sorts of things that I associate with comforting places, and it serves as white noise while you write, but you can start to associate writing with those noises. And like I said, for me it's rain noises because I used to write in Boston with the windows open while it rained, and I just associate writing with that. And sunshine is really beautiful, but it gets monotonous. Now, another way to combat writer's block is to be really strict with yourself and set deadlines. If you have a time by which you know that you need to be done with something, then you're going to have to push through the I don't want to write feeling and write. There are lots of different ways to set deadlines. They can be imaginary deadlines. So you pick a date and maybe it's 2 months from now and that's what you're writing towards. Or you can use motivation from fixed deadlines that are set within the community. So for example, let's say that you want to enter a contest, such as Pitch Wars, Query Combat, something like Author Mentor Match, which is a program that I run. Well, those sorts of programs have fixed and firm submission dates. And so you would need to be writing towards a deadline that you would need to finish, a month or 2 months ahead of a submission deadline so that you would have time to revise. And writing towards those kinds of deadlines can be really helpful. Which brings me to the subject of community. The writing community can be amazing for pushing you through writer's block. Find people who are also writing. You can do things like NaNoWriMo, which is both a community and a fixed deadline. You only have 1 month to write 50,000 words, but you're doing it with a ton of other people. And Nano isn't just in November. There's also Camp NaNoWriMo in April, and I believe there's one in July as well. So there's multiple times during the year where you can find this community actively writing. Similarly, my big tip is to try writing sprints. This is where you write in a burst of time. So it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, an hour, but you're doing it with a community of writers, with other writers. All you need is at least one other person to do a writing sprint, but you can do it with hundreds. The key is that for that fixed amount of time, you do nothing but write. You write as much as you possibly can. And at the end, you check in with your writing sprint buddies and you compare word counts. Now, it is obviously a little bit competitive. The idea is based in competition, but we're not a jerk community. It isn't about like, well, you only wrote 400 words, you're a loser. It's more, kind of pride. You want to write as many words as you can and see where you stack up. It's based in competition, but it's not a mean-spirited competition. It's all in the spirit of community, fun, and getting work done. I've used word sprints in the past to push through the hardest parts of my draft, and I've also done them to help my friends. If I have a friend who's on deadline and I'm casually working on a project, I'll suggest a word sprint because I know it'll benefit them. You can find people to do word sprints with on Twitter. There are hashtags that get used. You can find them on places like Reddit, in other writing communities, or you can gather together your CPs, your critique partners, and say, hey, do you want a word sprint for like 30 minutes? Now, sometimes the problem is that you just don't have anything to write, and making yourself write and forming habits and using tricks just doesn't help. Well, my number one tip for breaking through writer's block is to take a shower. At least that's what I do. I set aside my writing and I take a shower. I wash my hair at night and I write at night, so that works out really well. There's something about being in the shower where there's nothing else to do. There's no distractions. I don't have my phone, there's no television, and I'm not writing. There's something soothing about washing my hair and brainstorming. And also, fun fact, you can talk to yourself in the shower and no one's there to think that you're crazy. So I talk out a lot of plot problems in the shower, and most of the time I have a breakthrough. I think 99% of the time I use the shower tactic, I have some sort of breakthrough on a scene level, on a sentence level, chapter, plot, conflict. And I rush out of the shower and I dry myself off as fast as possible, and then I sit down at the keyboard and I write all the words. Showers are magical for me. But there are all sorts of variations on the idea of getting away and letting your brain kind of clear and have a pure space to just think. Going for a walk is a really good one. If you're a runner, going for a run is great too. Those are the top two things that I've heard in the writers community. It's showers and walks / runs. But whatever that activity might be for you, try it. It could be going grocery shopping or cooking or knitting, whatever the thing is that you can do to distract yourself, especially physically. You're doing a physical activity that's semi-mindless, you can do it without really thinking, so that the other parts of your brain can brainstorm. Public transportation is also good for this. I do brainstorm and have breakthroughs when I'm going to and from work. As long as you're not distracted, you could also do this when you're driving. But I don't drive, so I don't know. It seems a little risky. But then sometimes you are just completely blocked. The creativity isn't there. Well, sometimes we need to refill the well. You need to do things that you enjoy that aren't writing or actively plotting, that make the synapses in your brain fire and get you excited about stories. So it could be watching television or a movie, reading a ton of books, whether they're in your genre or not. I like to read nonfiction to kind of clear my brain and refill my well. It could be spending time with your friends, just doing the things that you love to do when you're not on a brutal writing schedule. It could be a vacation. There are all sorts of ways to refill your creative well. Whatever you need to do and like to do to get inspiration, do that thing and give yourself permission to take a few days off. I've said before, form a writing habit, and I try not to take more than 3 days off from writing, or I find that I break the habit. But sometimes you might need a week or 2 weeks off. The key there is set a deadline again. Like say, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and I'm just going to catch up on all of the TV shows that I haven't been watching. I'm going to go out with friends and enjoy myself and not, hole up in my apartment writing words. Make sure though that when the 2 weeks is up, you start your writing habit again. That's really key. But we need periods of time when we're not writing. So those are my top writer's block busting tips. I hope they've helped. And if you have other tips and tricks that you use, leave them down in the comments, because this is a community and it's all about taking a bunch of different bits of advice from different places, like throwing spaghetti at a wall and just figuring out what works for you. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Coming up, I'm going to be talking about plotting versus pantsing, story beats, revision, which is one of my all-time favorite topics, and then the industry-specific stuff like querying and agents and submission. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye!